Welcome to tonight's A Time for Two show. And we had a tremendous blizzard here on the East Coast, but we're still here for you. We got a very important topic that we're going to be discussing tonight regarding our veterans, those men and women who protected the country. So we're going to have a special guest tonight. And first, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Birdwell Foundation. And we'll show you some pictures. The Birdwell Foundation is for post-traumatic stress, an ever-growing national nonprofit organization that's staffed by peers of military and first responders, and they provide one-on-one services, referrals, intervention that prove and have proven to transform, restore, and save our veterans and first responders' lives. The Birdwell Foundation and Mr. Birdwell feel very strongly that it takes a community of dedicated professionals to come together for individual support and to help our veterans and first responders to this trauma that they go through in their professions and in their lives. The problem is really much more pervasive than most people realize, and it's really the most deadly wound of war and the root cause of most veteran suicides. Direct intervention is really important because we have an alarming rate of 22 veteran suicides daily. But in reality, since all the states are not reporting, we actually have maybe as high as 50 occurring each day of suicides. A very important fact to realize about tonight's show is while the Vietnam Memorial lists 58,195 names of our veterans who died in that war, there have been 210,000 Vietnam veteran suicides reported. And in Iraq and Afghanistan too, the suicide rate exceeds the casualties from the actual war. In 2020, a CDC survey reported that 40% of first responders were struggling with mental health and substance abuse issues because of the COVID stay-at-home and social distancing stresses. And this is just the responders and the veterans, not to say the effects on their families, which are overwhelmed, depressed, confused because of their spouse's problems. And this actually affects a minimum of 5 family members per respondent or veteran. A beautiful quote that Mr. Birdwell, the founder of the Birdwell Foundation, has stated, "No one heals alone. We're all here to stop the pandemic rate of our soldiers and first responder suicides, and we need your help." So tonight, before we introduce our special guests, we're going to play for you a video for a few minutes so we can get honed in on what we're going to be speaking about tonight. Engineer, if you could put the first video on, please.
Some really important concerns this Memorial Day weekend about the treatment our soldiers receive when they return from battle. And there's a Fox News investigation into the increased use of powerful psychiatric drugs on our veterans and the impact these drugs are having. Our Douglas Kennedy looked into this as part of our series on drugging the American soldier.
Marine Corporal Andrew White survived the war in Iraq in 2005.
Temper tantrums, tremors.
Unfortunately, says his father Stanley, he could not survive the drug cocktail prescribed to him by his caregivers at the Department of Veterans Affairs.
Once they treat you for PTSD, the first line treatment seems to be a series of medications. We call them cocktails, and if it doesn't work, they increase the dosage, give you more and more and more.
Andrew was prescribed 19 different medications from the VA and was on 5 drugs for insomnia when he accidentally died in his sleep in 2011. A cocktail that included the antidepressant Paxil, the anti-anxiety Klonopin, and the antipsychotic Seroquel.
It's inexcusable to be giving our military and our vets multiple psychiatric drugs in cocktails. They do no good, they do huge harm.
Peter Bregan is a psychiatrist who says the military and VA's use of psych drug cocktails is verging on criminal.
We now know that exposure to multiple drugs over a period of months or years leads to chronicity, it leads to disability.
And he says it leads to suicide and accidental death. Still, between 2005 and 2011, the military and VA went on a spending spree with psychoactive medication, increasing prescriptions by a whopping 682%. An increase which this military spokesman defends.
It might be appropriate, in addition to giving an antidepressant drug, to give a medicine that helps with the anxiety for a little while. And then when the anxiety goes away but the depression hasn't still quite remitted, you may want to think about using another medication.
The military says the use of drug cocktails is safe if used as prescribed. What do you say?
I do not agree. There's no research available that we know of that says that multiple drugs are safe.
Unfortunately, he says his son was a guinea pig for what he calls psych drug experiments. In Charleston, West Virginia, Douglas Kennedy, Fox News.
Well, there you go. And with that, we're very honored to have with us tonight Mr. Gene Birdwell, who is the founder and director of the Birdwell Foundation. Welcome, Gene.
Thank you, Dr. Felkoff. My pleasure.
It's a pleasure to have you. I wanted you to have a chance to say a few words to our viewers as regards to your background.
My background, I'm just a graduate engineer. I'm a business, but many years ago, probably 15 years ago now, I saw a short video about the horrors of PTSD, and Dr. Felkoff, it was a God moment. I knew that somebody had to do something about it, and it was kind of that Moses statement that God told Moses, "If it's not you, Moses, who is it?" And so I've been in the PTSD business ever since, and it's a losing battle. They're creating faster than we can help them. As the video showed, and that's very well done newscast. They're right on it. Even worse than what they're saying, though. For example, one of our people, one we treated, worked with, it took us a long time to get him in. When he came in, he was on 36 meds, and Dr. Felkoff, 6 of them were narcotic type. Now, nobody can function on 6 narcotic types at one time. I can't even stand to be on one, much less 5 or 6. But this young man was on 6 at a time. What they do is they would give you one to try, and if that didn't work, they'd tell you to come back in a month or 2, and they'd give you another, and they'd give you another one, but they would not cut off the one. And so the poor veteran said, "Well, they still sending it to me. I guess I'm supposed to be taking it still." So he's still taking it, and then he goes a month and he gets the same thing again. So now he's on 3 of them, and that's a deadly mixture. In fact, nearly every one of those narcotic type, I've read about them, and I've read about the bad side effects, and nearly every one of those narcotic type opioids have bad side effects of suicidal thoughts. I say, but for crying out loud, the VA giving them all these narcotics is what's making them want to kill themselves. They hurt so bad, and the more drugs that worse it gets, and so that just makes it worse and worse and worse. If worse is a good word, makes it work back from going to bad to worse. Eventually nothing works, and they lose all hope. And when they lose hope, they've lost everything else. They've lost their family, their job, they've lost their home, they've lost their automobile, and they lose their hope and self-respect. And the only solution they can think of is suicide. And that's why our suicide rate is so high amongst the veterans and first responders. It's the only answer that they know that'll give them any relief from the pain. And people have asked me how bad PTSD hurt. I said, well, I'll tell you what, it hurts so bad that it'll make a full-grown man that to take his own life will ease the pain. And that's why our suicide rate is as high as it is. And actually, it's far higher than the 22 a day, because we know that only 22 states out of the report. The three main ones, California, Texas, and Illinois, do not report. So that's that 22 a day. It could be easily 40 or 50. And this is just for vets alone. This does not include first responders. I think there's probably that many first responders. So we could be having a suicide rate of PTSD of 100 a day, and that's pandemic problems right there in itself.
Absolutely. When you look, one thing I was going to say, Gene, if you can move slightly to your right, the viewers will have a better. That's perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. So I think your point is very well taken. That with those numbers, we really have to take a look, and what we're doing, is it really efficacious? And these people, have given their lives, risked their lives for our country. So I really laud you for having this foundation. I was reading a little bit about it, and I see that you use their peers. So how does that come about? People who went through the program or volunteer? Tell us a little bit about that.
Both, really, Dr. Felkoff. Most of our mentors have gone through the program and been helped by it. They've all had PTSD in one form or another, and we've helped them through the program. And when the final step in their healing process is give back. They're so relieved that their pain is manageable. We can't heal it, unfortunately, but we can kind of live with it. And when they get to that point, then they want to give back. So that's where we get all of our people, because a PTSD sufferer won't hardly listen to a psychiatrist that doesn't have a clue how painful PTSD really is. They'll just come unglued completely when he's sitting across the desk from a 25-year-old psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist said, "Oh, I know exactly how you feel. I know how bad you hurt." And he'll say, "No, you don't have a clue how I hurt. And unless you've been there and done that, you don't know how bad it is." And that's why I say I won't tell anybody that I know how he feels. I know he hurts, but I don't know how bad he hurts, because I don't have PTSD. Praise the Lord, I don't. But so many of them do. And the methods that the VA uses, and most of them is the psychiatry and the drugs, they do not work. They just make the situation worse. And so that's our challenge. Then we found out when we got into the first responders that their challenge is even worse, because most of the first responders, where they work, and their workplace, they do not get workman's comp for PTSD. Now, the military, they finally recognized that PTSD was real, and it was an injury caused by the war. So they started giving them credit for it and as a war injury. And but the police force there and the fire department, the EMS people, they don't get that benefit, and most of them insurance carriers do not recognize PTSD as an on the job stream, and so they hurt worse because they can't get coverage, and too many times the first responders, if acknowledge that they have PTSD, they lose their job, and so most of them suffer through it until they get to the point that they can't stand it any longer, and they suicide. So we've got a double whammy with them not even being recognized as an injury and getting any benefits out of it, and just losing their job because of it. So,
it seems like from what you're describing and the things that you're mentioning, that especially in our country at this point, where so many different people are being recognized, it would seem that our veterans and the mental trauma that they've gone through, obviously being in a war, having people dying around you, killing someone else, and being in that type of situation has to have an effect long term when they go out and something reminds them of that. So I really think it's really exemplary of you that you're getting these institutions to realize, to recognize this, so that these human beings are first of all are not being subject to prejudice. I have a question. What is the reason that someone who admits to having a stress from trauma, why does he then lose his job?
Well, that's one of the stigmas that both veterans and the first responders carry with PTSD, is that they label them as crazy, and PTSD is not an insanity. It's a mental illness, just like any other mental illness, and it's treated as a mental illness and not just condemned as insanity. And PTSD, it's not just an injury of the body; it's an injury of the spirit, and of the man is doing things that is really contrary to who he is and what he's always been taught to be. And in a modern world, people are taught to love and respect. And when you go to war, you're taught to hate and kill. And so they have to do things, and they see things that is so contrary to who they are and what they are, that it hurts their spirit. And that's the reason our program is successful, Dr. Felkoff, is we address the problem with a spiritual effect to it. And without a spiritual effect, you don't have a chance with PTSD. You might get relief from the pets, from a service dog. You might get relief from horses, and I recommend every one of them. But for the long term effect, if you took that horse away or that dog, his PTSD comes right back. So the horse or the dog becomes just a crutch instead of a healing process for them. But I want every one of my people, when they graduate, I just love to have each one of them have a service dog, unless they own a farm and got room enough for a horse, because a horse and a dog, or those animals are just very relaxed to them, and actually the dogs well trained that they can even see the problem starting and help get him back on track when he's having a flashback or an attack, if you will.
You know what? It's very interesting what you're bringing out because as a 40-year dental surgeon in the Metro New York area, I see a lot of what you're saying because when I treat patients, they come in pain, and when somebody's in pain, it's part physical pain and it's part mental pain because once they have the physical pain for any period of time, they start, like you said, they start getting stressed, and that compounds against, on top of their physical pain, they have the mental side or the spiritual side of them, of what they're going through. Because, there's like a hopelessness that I see sometimes. And, it's very interesting because you're bringing out something that in my office, when I walk into the room, the first thing I try to do is establish with them is a little confidence. And like you said, a calm environment, let them know they're going to be okay. So I really, commend you that you're approaching this from the spiritual side and the physical side, because as human beings, that's what makes us different than something else, is the fact that we know the difference and we know right from wrong. So we feel stressed, like you said, in the war. That makes total sense to me. And the fact that you're willing to push that forward, sometimes I think, let me ask you a question. Do you feel sometimes in this technological world that we've gotten so much of the technology that we've forgotten about being a human being?
Yes, sir, just exactly. And that's a stigma that they don't need, because they say that 60% of the veterans coming back will not even go to the VA with their PTSD because they don't want the VA to label them as crazy. And you read it in the newspaper. Anytime there's a veteran or a shooting or something like that involving a veteran, they don't come out and say that his PTSD made him do it, but they always finish it off by saying, well, he has PTSD, and stops right there and let you finish the sentence yourself. Like the American Sniper, when that crazy veteran, and this one was crazy. He was crazy as a loon. That killed the American Sniper and his buddy when they had taken him out to hunt and to get away and get some relaxation and PTSD. Well, he went out with two men, and one of them was driving his new pickup, and the two are dead. He comes back driving the pickup. Well, now that's how insane he was, thinking that it was what happened, what was going on, and so he killed him just for the get his pickup. So there, man is insane. But it had nothing to do with his PTSD. He also might have red hair, but his red hair didn't make him kill those two people. So that's a stigma that they live with, and we fight that stigma all the time. One of our biggest campaigns is the month of July is PTSD Awareness Month, and we strive real hard to get the word out and educate the country that PTSD sufferers are insane. They're not crazy. They're hurting, and they need help, not confinement and narcotics.
Absolutely. Well, you bring something to mind, because as a dentist, I've treated younger kids, and sometimes when a younger kid is in an environment where maybe their parents are getting divorced, and before they get divorced, there's probably a lot of fighting in that household, and that child is in a little body, and they can be very fearful and carry that on for the rest of their lives. So something that, in dentistry we do is we try to always allay people's fears and bring them up to the moment. It would be really easy for a dentist to label somebody, I don't know, partially neurotic or insane. But the reality is they're reacting to something where they had a traumatic experience. Sometimes people come in, and unfortunately, dentistry years ago was not like it is now, and they had a lot of pain. And so they come in now and they're expecting to have a lot of pain. That doesn't make them crazy. It just means that they had something in their past. So I laud you for that. Engineer, we have a few of Mr. Birdwell's videos. Let's put on the first one for the audience. Beautiful. I'm curious, in your own family, did you have any military involvement or no?
Yes, sir. I'm a veteran myself, but I was a peacetime Air Force officer, and I was a desk, and so I don't have PTSD, but I heard the horrors of it. Like I said, 15 years ago, about now, and it was just it was so upsetting to me. I just took the challenge on to do something about it, and so that's been the fight since then. And right now, I almost feel like we're losing the fight because they're getting more or getting PTSD than we're helping. We can't reach everybody all of a sudden, but we're doing our best, and we get no government funding, and so we're a 501c3 that always needs help, and the PTS, I mean a 501c3 runs on money. Without it, you don't have anything. We have about 30 employees and about 50 volunteers. Praise the Lord for the 50 volunteers, because they're some of the best we've got too. They're really dedicated, and they're in it because they want to give back. They're hurting. They had hurt and they've been helped, and they want to give back. And we're always glad to have them because they have the right attitude and the right spirit about it. I noticed something in that last video. The suicide rate of first responders, we have no stats on it because they're not kept. But one stat that we do know is a fact that of suicide by firemen and police officers, the suicide rate is higher than the fatality on the job injury rate is. And that, that's makes you sick at your stomach just thinking about it. That more of them take their own lives than the fire accidents or the shooting the police officers. That's how many of them have the PTSD and how little help they really get from their organization with it. And so we struggle with that fight, helping them. And our first responder organization is growing rapidly because there are so many of them out there needing help, and we're helping them every day. Dr. Felkoff, we probably are seeing about 1,500 a week now in 12 states and about 30 locations in those 12 states, where we do one-on-ones with them or we do group meetings with them. The group meetings have been hampered in the past year, of course, with COVID safe distancing, but the meeting has become a success, and we're having a lot of Zoom calls for our people. We just have all sorts of people that we help every day, and of that 12 to 1,500 that we see every week, I consider every one of those as a potential life-saving event. We never know, and when somebody calls our hotlines, they're answered by somebody that knows what PTSD is because they've had it. And I've told my people that you stay on the line, you answer that phone, and you take care of that man on that man or woman or child that the line with the PTSD problem, because there may not be a tomorrow for them. So it's always a matter of life and death with them. And you were mentioning children. Absolutely, children have PTSD because daddy has it and mama has it. She's gotten it because daddy has it, and she doesn't even know why he's like he is. They don't understand PTSD, and they don't realize what he's going through, and she thinks that he's mad at her. But that's not true. He's not mad at her. He's just hurt so bad that he just strikes out because he's hurting.
Gene, to interject on something there, very important, because I've seen that with patients, and I'm subject to that a lot in my surgical field, because you're right, people have emotions, but it's not that they're upset with you or me. So it's not that like you said at home, it's not that they're upset with their spouse, but they've got something going on. And when that's there and that's in action, then it's affecting them, it's bothering them, so they act out. There's this word that I've learned called they dramatize. It's like they're dramatizing what they went through, but they don't realize it. And that's a very interesting point that you're bringing out, because that's something that if we can address the cause of why they're doing it, realizing what their background is. I'm curious, because you're very involved in this. Before these soldiers or first responders are put on medication or label, I see that in your program, you try to get them to get involved with the community, and you do all these other factors. Is that for a specific reason? I mean, do you have a reason why you feel that them getting involved as a human being or spiritually or the community, what have you seen with that? What are the results?
Well, that gives the opportunity to give back. As I mentioned a while ago, Dr. Goff, is that giving back is the fifth stage of a PTSD healing process, and that they will continue all of the rest of their life. Just as any of my people would tell you that they realize that they're helping themselves, helping their brothers, and one of our police officers has just written a book, and I wish everybody could read it. It's so realistic and so true. He describes exactly what hits him and has caused his PTSD. And it's things that he dealt with every day, every night on the job. And I tell you what, anybody has an opportunity, you can Google it on online and buy it through Amazon. It's called Silent Scream, and it is an excellent book on first responder, police officer type of PTSD. He describes his injuries very clearly, and he's with us. He's one of ours now, and he's giving back. And I told him he's in stage 5 of his healing process, and I tell him you better like it because you're in it the rest of your life. And they do like it because they are giving back, and they're getting satisfaction and knowing that they're helping their others get to deal with it and learn to give back and help others with it. And so this is the way the vision works. We in fact, I think we were probably the first in the country to ever start treating and working with families. But see, right now we work with families because mama's hurting too, and we have 3 manuals that we use. One the combat manual for the warrior. We have a first responder manual for the first responder themselves. We have a family manual, and right now, Dr. Felkoff, you'd be happy to hear that there are no manuals that we have found so far to talk about children's PTSD, which you mentioned and talked about very, very realistically, as they have PTSD also. And so we're working on a manual now for children. It'll be in 2 forms. It'll be a manual that for the teacher to talk about it with them, but it'll also be in a comic book form for younger children, so they can understand it better than just hearing an adult talk about it. So we're excited about that.
That makes a lot of sense. What I was going to say is, I see in your symbol of your nonprofit group, No One Heals Alone, and what I'm noticing as we're talking tonight is that you basically, part of your program is putting this veteran, putting this first responder, back to contribute to society, which to me, I was looking at it from my viewpoint, that would make me, if I was that person, feel good about doing something for my community without getting any payment for it, just getting the satisfaction that I did something. And I was looking at it personally. I said, okay, so as you were talking, I said, how would that make me feel? Where would that put my mind? Where would that put my attention? And to me, what I was looking at, and that's why I wanted to mention it to you, it puts my mind on something pleasant. It puts my my attention on the fact, hey, you know what? I helped my neighbor. I helped my local church, synagogue, whatever. That's very, very interesting. Is that? Did you find that you did that because you have a lot of spirituality in your own life, or it just happened?
Oh yes, yeah. I learned early that it is you get more enjoyment out of giving than you do taking, and I get a thrill out of seeing these young men that comes to us hurting so bad that they can't deal with everyday facts of life. You know, they're hurting so bad, and to see them come through this and come out the other side as a productive human being that's enjoying life again. I every day on Facebook, some of our people will be on there, and I'll check with them, and it thrills me to death to see one of them that I know, and I remember the condition he was in when he first came to us, and how bad he was hurting. And like the picture there right now, the man on my right is Roger Marshall. Roger is we've got because he came to us hurting the worst. In fact, he had been through every program that the VA had for PTSD care, and none of them had worked for him. And he was just about on his last leg and about to take his own life when he heard that about us, and he gave us a call, and Roger was really easy because he wanted to be better. You know, if somebody doesn't want to help themselves, you can't help them, Doc. It just doesn't work that way. But if they come to you wanting help and want to help themselves, then we can help them. And Roger wanted help so bad, and he was really easy to get through the first 4 steps. But I've got Roger in step 5, and he's thrilled to death with it. He just works his rear off every day, help others, and now first responders with PTSD. The other young man in the picture there is a Marine recruit still on active duty that is working with us all, and he's going to be taking over South Texas and the Houston area as soon as he quits being an active duty Marine. He can be a former Marine and start helping his brothers with PTSD. And,
very nice. You know what I was going to say is we have a few of your videos, and I want to make sure that we get to them during the show. Engineer, if you could put on the next video so the viewers can see more about his foundation.
PTSD support for veterans and first responders who have suffered a trauma in their life.
Roger inspires me, man, because like to me, he's just grown so much in just a little bit of time I've known him. And if I think about where he came from, like if it's anything like I came from, like, wow, man, it's amazing the second chances that we get.
Very nice. So what happens is they get into groups and they get to communicate with each other. Is that what happens? Or?
Yes, they do. And they'll talk about it to another vet because he knows they're not crazy. He knows that they're hurting because he's been there and done that. And that's why we use we don't counsel anybody. We mentor them through it. Counseling in the military is a weak word, and so we don't counsel them. We mentor, and so they all mentors to help their brothers who are suffering. And you know, we didn't talk about one stat. You mentioned it briefly, but the suicide rate is so high. It's over 2 to 1 already for the Afghanistan, Iraq conflict. That twice as many have killed themselves since the fighting started over there. Been killed over there, and in Vietnam, there's 68,000 names on the wall. As you mentioned, there's 210 suicides. That's 4 times the rate for Vietnam veterans, and that's a startling, frightful fact. Really, the number just really boggles your mind and makes you want to help others and get out and do something about it. And
absolutely.
We welcome help.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things I wanted to mention, because you brought up the statistic, which is a good one to talk about. So there were about 58 to 68, maybe I think it was 58,000 Americans who died in the 10-year Vietnam War. And recently, I think it was like 2018, 19, and it's probably higher in 2020, but there were about 70-something thousand deaths due to drug overdose, and in just 1 year. And so, what you're bringing out and what they go through after the war, and then what's happening with drugs in general in the country, there was an idea that came to me that we could possibly have your participants actually counsel youth on the dangers of drugs, and so that they get educated and they realize that a drug is not going to be a solution for them, and that being out in the community or helping will be a good solution for them and put them on the right track. That's just something that I was thinking about because of the approach you have with your participants. And what do you think about that idea where they would like mentor students as part of community activity?
Yes, that's in fact that's a great thought, Dr. Felkoff. That even giving back just to help the community, the young people of the community. Suicide rate among young people is very high, and I'm sure it's just like with the responders and the vets. It's due to PTSD. It may be a broken heart occasionally here and there among teens. I think probably most of it is PTSD from home trauma, sexual trauma, an accident, a terrible car wreck or something. A PTSD we call PTSD a normal reaction to an abnormal situation in a person's life, and such as going to war and having to kill somebody, or having a real bad car wreck and relatives or get seriously injured. One officer friend told me that he's had it for 20 years, and he still has nightmares from the day he got it worse. He drove up to a real bad accident out on the interstate west of Houston, and when he got there to get in his patrol car and got out, there was children in the car, and there were body parts laying around, and he saw one little girl laying there, dismembered from the accident, and he said it still haunts him at times, screaming at night, remembering that scene. So this is what we're dealing with, and we're being successful with it. Like I said, we can't heal it. I like to think that if I had an eraser, I could get in the brain and I could erase memories of things done and things they've seen. I might have a chance of healing it, but I can't do that. So we just have to teach them how to live with it, and where to go to get the strength to deal with it for their everyday life. And we're being successful with it, Dr. Felkoff. But like I said, we need all the help we can get. It's an everyday battle for us, as serious as we can be about it.
Yeah, well, you know what? You brought up a very interesting point about what you perceive is the cause of what's going on with these different age groups and different personalities, different professions they were involved in. And that, if we could go in and address the situation that they went through and they didn't have that anymore, then it wouldn't be sitting there in their spaces or in their lives. They wouldn't have that to live with. And so it's interesting because if you think about it, if you could erase that incident and they didn't have it anymore, and that was causing their stress or that was causing their anxiety, then they would probably, I would think, relax, and it would be interesting how they would change. So I think it's great that you're fighting for them so they don't get labeled as insane, because anyone can have a really severe car accident, and if they have it with other people in the car, and some of them get dismembered, and like you said, body parts all around, and pain, and the violence of the accident, that's pretty hard to just forget about it, for the rest of your life. What do you feel about that?
That's exactly right too, and it is a real problem, and they're not insane, they're not crazies. They've got PTSD and they're hurting, and they need our help, not our criticism and our condemnation because of their PTSD.
Absolutely. Engineer, I think there's one more video that we had for tonight. If we can play that.
Please, sir.
June is PTSD Awareness Month. Suicide is a pandemic among veterans over 55, with numbers higher than those returning from active duty, Iraq, and Afghanistan, and all areas where the American servicemen are called to serve and protect the freedoms we hold so dear. To truly show how dismal the statistics are, we would also need to include PTSD suicides of our first responders. This includes police personnel, firemen, EMS personnel. Unfortunately, there are no verified statistics for those numbers, but they are estimated at 10 to 20% higher than the general population. One suicide is too many, and it's heartbreaking to realize that 70 to 100 of our bravest public servants take the final desperate step every day. What can you do? If you know someone that needs help, have them contact our hotline number at 1-830-822-2563. This public service announcement is brought to you through a partnership with Salem Media and the Birdwell Foundation for PTSD. For more information, go to www.birdwellfoundation.org.
Excellent. And I think we have one last video, so let's make sure we get that one in too before we end off here. Go ahead, engineer.
We're broken people now. We're burning out. So cold and bleeding now, now. Gonna let you down. We're broken people now. We're broken people now.
I like that song. Very nice, very appropriate. I like it. We have a few minutes left, and at this point of the show, I always like to ask our guests if they want to convey a message out there to the viewers. The show is A Time for Truth, and it has to do with salvaging America, making America, free, keeping it free. What would be the message that you would want to put out to our viewers, Mr. Birdwell?
I would beg them and plead with them to give the first responders the appreciation that they deserve. Give our vets the appreciation they deserve. Our people have been really good about our vets coming home from Southeast Asia, but because I think we have a guilty conscience about the way we treated our vets coming home from Vietnam. That was a disgrace. And I hope the American people never see anything like that again. But respect them and show them the respect that they deserve. They're given a whole lot, and they give so much and ask so little. Responders are just every day with them. It's day in, day out, but they're doing what they want to do. They're giving back. They're helping others. and that's exactly the attitude that that our people take into war and in the military. Is they're fighting to defend our country because they love this nation and love the freedoms that we have in this country. And we just need to fight for those freedoms just as hard as they fight for them, and we need to honor them and show them the respect that they deserve.
Absolutely. I would say that on this show tonight, first thing to all the veterans out there, from all of us, we want to thank you for risking your lives to protect our great country, United States of America. You know, we sometimes this country takes a lot of heat, but you know, as a father of 4 kids, a lot of times my kids weren't too happy with me, but later on in life, they were happy when they realized why their mother, my wife, or I did something. So you know what? Sometimes it takes time to change, but I want to first of all acknowledge them, thank all the veterans out there. I want to thank you, Mr. Birdwell, for what you're doing for them, because you know, the fact that you're doing that on a nonprofit basis, and you're taking your time, and you're doing it because you want to help, and you realize there's a need. Thank you very much for doing that.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that, Dr. Falkoff.
Absolutely.
It's not about it's about them, and that's all our only interest is helping the vets and the first responders that are suffering from PTSD. And please help us with it. We need all the help we can get.
I also want to thank someone who fights for a lot of humanitarian rights, for the veterans, for the homeless, for keeping kids off of drugs, and who got you and I together tonight, which is Harlem Globetrotter, Mr. Robert Hunter. We want to thank him and acknowledge him for all the service he gives the community. And last thing, as we turn off and we finish our show tonight, is take a look, as Mr. Birdwell had said, Gene, what can you do? You know, it's easy for us to find fault. Let's see what we can do. Let's all of us do something positive for our community, for our country. Let's move forward. Let's take care of the problems that are in front of our face. Let's not look to fight with each other. That doesn't achieve very much in the long run. Let's make some positive changes and bring some truth. And from A Time for Truth, thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Gene Birdwell, for what you do. And we will see you next Monday night.
Dr. Falkoff, I appreciate it very much, sir.
Thank you.
Good night, sir.
Good night.